Hi everyone, Mr. O'Brien here, and welcome to mineral identification. So this section is actually going to be split up into a few different parts, but what we're actually going to be talking about, at least to start off with this video, is talking about the different ways that we can help ourselves in order to identify minerals. So there are a few techniques and a few things to actually keep in mind while you're actually trying to identify specific minerals. And the basic list really kind of leads off with having a discussion on color. As you can tell just by looking at a lot of these different minerals that I have in this tray, there are many different color combinations, and it's actually quite difficult just by looking at it exactly which mineral is what. So we kind of have to use some other pieces of information that these minerals can actually tell us and decipher that information or that data that we gather. So color is not one of the best options to use. One specific example of looking at a mineral and trying to use color to identify it is based on the fact that a lot of, if I use some of these, a lot of minerals look exactly the same when it just comes down to color. Obviously, like these three, for example, here are almost identical in color, except the fact is that these are three completely different minerals. So color is not always a good option when we're actually focusing on that. In addition to that, if you were just think of color itself, right, we have some, sorry for the exposure there, but some very bright white minerals here as well. Got some more, and even some more, right? These are all different minerals. And obviously using color, it's not going to help us identify that mineral specifically. Another thing on color is actually if we were to take a look at a couple of minerals here, and you were to try and work out what these minerals are, you were to find out that these two minerals are actually the same mineral. Completely identical in every way except that the way they look. And it's quite obvious that if we were to just use color to determine what these minerals are, we would not end up with the same mineral. However, these are the same mineral. So the next thing to look at is luster. Luster is the way that light refracts or reflects off of the object. So if we were to look at that last example, you can tell just by looking at this, it's very glittery and sparkly, very metallic looking, and those are just descriptors that we use to help identify the luster of an object. Right? If we were to look at something along these lines, all right, kind of glassy or maybe resinous, resinous kind of being like plasticky, adamantious, which means kind of like a gemmy look. More, right, kind of metallic looking little bits and pieces. Sorry, I'm not getting too close because the camera won't focus right now. So we'll get a closer look up at these a little bit later. Things like this guy here, which is actually quite kind of waxy or resinous. So there's a lot of different terms that you can use to help describe that specific mineral when it comes to luster. The next thing we can look at is the crystalline form. and this is the shape of the crystals that that build up the mineral. Now, a lot of times you're not going to be able to identify the specific crystal form. However, there are some minerals that grow a specific way where you can properly identify them based on their shape, right? Their crystalline structure, their crystalline form. All right, so here we can actually see a nice kind of rectangular prism for this mineral. All right, these are all the same mineral here. So, but you can tell, whoops, that's not the right one. Right, you can tell just by the way that they're shaped that they all kind of break in that specific manner, or grow in that specific shape or that specific manner. So that's based on their crystalline form, their crystalline structure. Speaking of breaking, we'll get into that next. You can use something known as cleavage or fracture. So cleavage and fracture are two different terms, but they basically mean how the minerals break. So if we were to use this last example, perhaps these came from the same thing, and at some point in time they broke, and they actually break along a plane, a flat plane. So they could have been grown like this, and then at some point in time a fracture had occurred, right, and had broken or cleaved this mineral into two different pieces, right? So cleavage deals with a mineral that cleaves in or breaks along a certain plane, all right, a flat plane. So obviously when this mineral is breaking apart, we can see that all of the edges here are have cleaved along a specific plane. However, when you look at other specific minerals, some of them may not actually break in that same manner. They might actually fracture along, or break or cleave along a single plane. All right, and a lot of times you can tell that by looking at how they come apart, right? So breaking along a single plane, breaking along a double plane, or a triple plane. All right, in this case we have an X plane, a Y plane, and a Z plane. So this is actually breaking. It's a three plane cleavage that has occurred. Now you also have fracturing. So a lot of times what might happen is if you have an object or a mineral that when you break it does not break along a clean a plane or a surface, it just randomly kind of cracks, and that is actually classified as a fracture. So that's our difference between the cleavage and a fracture. It's basically looking at how the mineral has broken apart based on the edges, if you look at the edges.